What's up guys, I'm Andy from 1A Auto. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to replace the intake gasket on this 2010 Toyota Rav4. If you need parts for your vehicle, click the link in the description and head over to 1aauto.com. Disconnect the negative battery terminal. We'll use a 10mm wrench. Loosen this nut up and pull the connection off and set this aside. You don't want this to arc out on the battery, so make sure it doesn't spring back. Disconnect the mass airflow sensor right here. Just push down the tab, release the connector. There's a wire retainer right here. Just get a trim tool, get underneath there, pry it up. Just like that. There's one over here as well. Take that wire, disconnect that wire. Now I'm just going to use a 10mm socket and a ratchet. Loosen up this clamp right here. Now we can pull this snorkel back, just like that. I'm just going to release these clips on the airbox. Put those off. Pull the airbox out of the way. Pull the air filter out while I'm doing that. I'm just going to use the 10mm socket extension and electric ratchet to take these 3 bolts out of the airbox. You don't necessarily need to take this airbox out, but it's going to be better for the video, and also I might have a little more room. I'm just going to use a pick, remove this wire retainer right here. You can just kind of spread this apart. Should be able to get it to unclip. There we go. And slide that wire out. Grab the box and slide it out. I'm just going to remove this cover to get it out of the way. Just grab underneath and pull up. Just slide it out. All right, now I'm going to take this bracket out. You can try to use a Phillips head screwdriver to loosen up that screw so that you can pull this valve off, but the screw is pretty tight on this one. So I'm just going to use a trim tool, and we're just going to pry the bracket out of here. Just like that. And we can just take this hose out of the way. And I'm just going to take a hose clamp pliers, take this hose clamp off, loosen it up, try to move this hose to separate it. And it's not separating too well, so actually I'm going to separate it over here. Take this hose clamp off. Slide that down. Just grab the hose and twist. There we go. All right, I want to loosen up this hose clamp right here. I'm going to use a cable style hose clamp plier. Slide it over the hose clamp. And loosen that up. That loosened up. Try to grab the snorkel, just rotate it and pull it off. There's a vacuum line right here. This goes all the way over to the brake booster. So slide that out of the bracket. And there's a 10mm bolt right here. I'm just going to use a 10mm socket extension and a ratchet. Take this bracket off. I'm just going to leave everything attached to the bracket and just move it out of the way. And just slide this to the side. There's some hoses attached on the side here. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but we want to take those hoses off. This one just has a little clamp that you can use just your fingers to move it. And you can try twisting the hose. Now take this hose off right here. If you need to, you can take a right angle pick and just get in there and loosen up the hose. Now, there's another clamp on this vacuum hose that you can either take it off right here or take it off down there. All right, I'm just gonna use my hose clamp pliers, squeeze the hose clamp, and just try to move it down the hose. And just twist the hose and wiggle it off. And there we go, got it off. These hose clamp pliers work pretty good. You just line it up with the clamp and then squeeze it. That's how they work. So there's one of these hoses that is still attached to the intake that goes to this solenoid right here, the bottom hose. So you're just gonna have to try to get that one off. You can either disconnect it on the intake or disconnect it on this side. It's just a vacuum hose. If it's pretty brittle, you could just cut it and just replace it. Just gonna use the pick. There we go. A little bit of vacuum there. Slide that off. Disconnect the connector right here. Push down on the button. Let's slide that off. There's the button. There's a fuel line right here. Just move that fuel line out of the way. You could take that this bracket off if you needed to, but we'll just move it out of the way for now. And then there's two coolant lines that go to the throttle body. Now what you could do is just pop those lines off, but you're gonna lose a lot of coolant. So I'm gonna use these coolant hose pinchers. We actually sell these at 1aauto.com. What you're gonna do is just put one around here like this, and then just tighten down the wing nut. That's gonna tighten off the coolant, prevent some of the coolant loss. It's still a good idea to top off the coolant after you're done the job, but this is gonna prevent a lot of coolant from coming out. And you don't have to tighten these too tight, just snug. Should be good. And I'll put one on the other one as well. So just make sure there's no pressure in the coolant system. Just grab the radiator hose and give it a squeeze. Make sure it's not hot before you pop these off, because you don't want to get a face full of coolant. And we'll use the hose clamp pliers. You could probably use regular pliers to get these clamps off too. Just hose clamp pliers work a little better. All right, just move those down like that. Same with this one. You can take a pick, right angle pick, and just try to pop these lines off. Just get in there. We're gonna lose a little bit of coolant. You can put a bucket underneath the car to catch any of the coolant. And slide that off. Just like that, not too much coolant. And same with the other one. Now I'm going to take these 4 bolts out. I'm just going to use a 10mm socket and an extension and a ratchet. Take these out. With all those bolts out, just grab the throttle body and slide it out. Just be careful with it, don't drop it. There is a connector right here. This goes to a tuning valve. Sometimes they call it a runner valve. It's basically a solenoid that moves some doors inside the intake. So you want to disconnect that connector right there. All right, so this hose right here that goes to this solenoid valve, just slide this off. Now you can disconnect it right here if you want, just like that, or you could disconnect it down there. It might be a little bit harder to get to, so just disconnect it like that. Now there's some brackets that hold these wires onto the intake right here and right here. I'm just going to take the bolts out and we'll disconnect those brackets. Just use a 10mm socket extension and a ratchet. And same with this one. Let's slide those wires out of the way. At least this wire, this other wire, we still have some attachments to disconnect. So there's a retainer right there. I'm just going to use some needle nose pliers. Try to squeeze the tabs on the retainer. Get that wire out. And actually, I think it goes this way. And slide that wire out. Then there's a connector right here. You can slide the connector off the retainer or squeeze the retainer. Slide that out. And some more right here and right on the back side. This one's going to be hard to see. I can't even see it. I'm just going to have to go from underneath. Try to squeeze the retainer. There is a bracket right here. I'll actually take that bracket off. Just use a 10mm socket. All right, take that bolt out. And then that bracket comes out. So you could have just tried to pop that off if you wanted to. Or take the bracket off, and then there's one more right here. Just use my pliers underneath, slide that up, and just slide this wiring harness out of the way. From underneath the vehicle, I'm going to use a 12mm socket, a long extension, and a ratchet. There's a bolt right here that I have to get that out. So it might be a little tricky to get in there. Just try to loosen that up. Once it breaks free, it'll be easier to just do it by hand. There we go. Slide that bolt out. Over on the passenger side, there is a wiring harness connector right here. You want to try to take that off as well. Just use some needle nose on the back side. Try to squeeze the retainer. Try to get that out. There we go. And just pop that off. Oh, I guess it squeezes this way, not the other way. So slide that out of the way. Now I need to get access to some of the bolts on the back side. You can't really see them. You could use a mirror to find out where they are. So there's one right here at the front of the intake. I'm going to use a 12mm socket and an extension. Try to get on that. You just got to do it by feel, pretty much. All right, get on that bolt, take that off. Once you get it loose, probably take the extension and the socket and just do it by hand. And slide the bolt out. There's one. And we'll do the same with the other ones. Should be a bolt right in between, pretty much in between all the intake runners. All right, and then on the back side, there's one more of those bolts. So there's a total of 5 of those bolts. So if you get those all out, then the intake is loose. Let's slide the intake off. So this hose right here to this solenoid is still connected to the intake, so we'll pop that off. You could mark this just to say which hose goes where. You just use a marker, just a felt tip pen. Just make a mark on that, and then just make a mark on the solenoid so you know those line up. Then you could disconnect that, just like that. So this intake, you can't get it past the fuel rail. So what we're actually going to do is pull the fuel rail off at this time. So disconnect that. Now you could have pulled the fuel rail off before, but we're just going to do it now. Then I'll take a 12mm socket, an extension, and a ratchet. And there's the bolt right here. Take this bolt out. Again, it's kind of hard to see, you just gotta do it by feel. Once you loosen it up, then you can take it out. And there's another bolt over here, more on the driver's side. Take that bolt out. Take that bolt out. Just grab the fuel line and slide it up and out of the way. So at this point, if you were trying to remove the intake to pull it out, this cowl is actually in the way. Now, the reason why we did the video like this is because we had other things we were going to remove, and you don't need to remove the cowl to get to those other things. So at this point, I'm going to remove the cowl. Just take a pick or a small screwdriver, get under here to get the covers for the wiper arms. Take those off. Then you can access the bolts, or the nuts. And we're going to use a 15mm socket and a ratchet. Loosen these nuts up. Same with this one. Take that nut off, then take this one off. And you can grab the wiper arm and you just wiggle it a little bit. You should be able to get it to slide off here. And same with the other one. Take that off. Then on both sides, we're just going to take this rubber piece off right here. You can either pull it off completely or just separate it from up top or even down below. Do the same on the passenger side. All right, from underneath here, just take a straight blade screwdriver or a trim tool, and there's some clips that go in. Just hold this down, pop those clips up. Once those are all popped up like that, oops, this piece fell out. It's okay. Then we're just gonna slide this towards the front of the vehicle a little bit. There is some clips on the back here that slide into the windshield. Slide that aside. Now this piece is gonna come out. Just take a straight blade screwdriver. Just pop these clips to the side. Same with this one and this one. And this comes right out. Now we're just gonna remove these two wiper transmission bolts. I'm going to use a 10mm socket extension and a ratchet. Remove that one and remove this one. Take that out. Grab the wiper transmission and we're going to slide it towards the passenger side and then slide it out. We can just flip it over here. If you want to, you can disconnect the connector, but you don't have to. Can be out of the way, just make sure it doesn't arc on the battery. Then you can take a straight blade screwdriver or a trim tool, take this wiring harness retainer out there. And then we have 14 bolts we need to remove. Some right there, 3 right there, 4, 5, and then the same on the other side. So we're going to take those out with a 10mm socket, extension, and a ratchet. 14 total. With those all disconnected or taken out, then we can slide this little plate out right there. Just get it out of the way. Now I want to remove this hose, at least get it out of the way. So take the 10mm socket and ratchet, remove these nuts. And right there. Be very careful not to drop any of these into the intake. Just take this, slide the hose, and we'll just slide this out of the way. Now we can grab the intake and very carefully slide it up. You have a lot more room this way. It comes right out. So the old gasket actually fell off the intake, so we'll take that out, throw that away, and then I'm going to take a rag and just get some solvent or some brake parts cleaner on, and we're going to clean all the surface of where the intake goes. I'm going to clean it real good. Try not to get anything into the intake runners or intake ports. So I'm just gonna take a rag and some cleaner, some brake parts cleaner, or some kind of solvent. Try to clean these intakes out a little bit. Just get any of the oil, mostly out of these grooves in here, so that the new gasket can get in there and not fall out. So just do that, spend a little time cleaning that. Now I'm gonna take the gasket. Now you can line it up, find these little tabs right here, and find where they go on the intake itself. So there's a notch there and a notch there, so we'll line those up. They only go on one way. And you really want these to stick in there good. Just like that. Before we put the intake on, just get anything out of your way. You can try to get this bracket out of the way. There's these little spacers that go under the fuel injector rail. So I am gonna take those off temporarily. Just put these aside, just so they don't fall into any of the intake ports. And this is personal preference. I like to take a blowgun just to make sure nothing fell in the intake ports. That way, if there was a bolt or something that fell in there, you might hear it rattling around, because otherwise that will not be good. Now I'll just grab the intake, make sure your gasket's in there good, and just slide it down into position. Get that lined up. There is some pins, so slide those guide pins in and take your bolt and just take a socket, 12mm socket, and extension. I'm just gonna get the two top ones started. Then at least it holds the intake a little bit better. There we go. Now I don't actually physically have to hold the intake. Now I can get the other bolts in. Now with the vehicle raised up, I can put this last bolt in. There's a total of 6 of these intake bolts. I know I might have said there was only 5 taking this out, but this one is included. This one right here. So get that one started. Once you get that one started, then we have to drop the vehicle down, torque the other intake bolts from up top, and then raise it back up, and then torque this last one. Now I'm going to take a 12mm socket and a torque wrench. I'm going to torque this to 15 foot-pounds, and there is a specific order. So we need to start in the middle, the lower middle bolt right there. That's number 1. Number 2 is to the left of that and upper. So closer to the driver's side, upper. 15 foot-pounds. Number 3 is the opposite of that, on the passenger side. Number 4 is right here, this lower one on the passenger side. Number 5 is the opposite of that, on the driver's side. Tighten that down, and then after that, you want to raise the vehicle and get number 6, or if you can grab it from over here. And I can't, I'm going to raise the vehicle. And it's not the easiest to get a torque wrench in here, but torque this last bolt, number 6. There we go. And then if you want to, you can go back around and just double check all the torques, make sure they're all torqued down properly. This O2 sensor bracket, we're just going to reinstall that in position on the intake where that connector went, right there. Get that started. Yeah, I'm just going to grab this hose. We're going to reinstall this in the back here. Just line that up there. like that. Take the nuts, get those started. Right there and right there. Then take a 10mm socket and a ratchet. We'll tighten these up. All right, tighten that up and tighten this one up. And that's good. So now we're going to install this hose. I'm just going to use some hose clamp pliers. You can move this hose clamp back down to that position. Right there. If I get it lined up, this one goes on the lower part. Now you can try to squeeze it on and just slide it on, but sometimes you need a little help from the hose clamps. Pliers. I'll slide that on, and then that's good right there. Then there's this other hose that's a little bit easier to install. Right here, this has this clamp. You can just use your fingers to move that clamp. Slide this over here. And that's good. And then this sensor right here, I marked these hoses for this solenoid. So this one's gonna go right here. And then the other one is gonna go on the other side, just like this. So it's a good idea to mark those. And we can slide that hose right there in that bracket. Now, before we install the injector rail, we're going to put these little spacers back in position. There's 2 of them. Let those sit right there and right there. All right, I'm just going to take these injectors, wipe them off. Now, it is recommended that you replace the seals whenever you take these injectors out. We don't have new seals for this, so we're going to reuse the old ones. It's not the best idea because you could end up with a check engine light afterwards. So strongly recommend replacing the seals. Then just slide the injector rail back in position. Now you want to check the holes for the injectors as well. You might want to clean those out or blow them out with a blowgun. And just line these up. And those are all lined up. That's good. Take these 2 bolts, get them started. Right there and right there. Don't drop them. Now we'll take a 12mm socket and a torque wrench. We're going to torque these bolts to 15 foot-pounds. All right, those are tight. Now we're going to connect the fuel injectors, connect the connectors. Just line up the connector and lock it in place. There's 4 of them. There we go. Now we can take all these wiring harnesses, get these back in position where they go. And there's this wire retainer down here. You can push that back where that goes. On the intake. All right, and this wire is gonna go right here. And there's this bracket that goes on the back over here. Connect this connector. This connector can actually go back in this retainer right here. We didn't have to take that off because we took the whole bracket off. So, but that's gonna line up right there. So we're gonna put a bolt there. It's gonna be a bolt that goes onto this bracket over here, and then those brackets over there. I'll take the bolt that goes down here, install that on this bracket. All right, and then you can put the other bolts in on the brackets and snug them all down. All right, snug those up. Just use a 10mm socket and a ratchet. This bracket right here I need to install that, so install that bolt. And then you can use a ratchet wrench or just a 10mm socket and ratchet. Snug that up. All right, I'm just gonna put a rag over the throttle body. You could have did this earlier. It's just a good idea to prevent things from falling into the throttle body or into the intake. Now I'm gonna reinstall this piece right here, this cowl cover piece. Now based on the rest of the video, what you could do is hold off till the end to do this piece. And I would recommend when you're doing this job, take this piece off first. We took it off about halfway through, just for the sake of other videos that we're making. So line that up, and then we'll put the bolts in. I'll take these bolts, put these all in. There's 14 of these bolts in all. So put those all back in, and then we'll just tighten them down. Now I'll just use a 10mm socket extension and a ratchet, tighten these up. Now I'll reinstall the wiper motor and transmission. Just line that up. And this is gonna slide in the back on that bracket right there. Bolts back in. We'll tighten these up with a 10mm socket and a ratchet. And take this wire, re-secure that right there. Take this panel, slide this in position, and lock it in place. All right, take the cowl cover, just slide that in position. The piece at the top goes under the windshield and slides over. And then line up underneath, there's these push pins. Line those up, lock them down, just like that. Take some push pins. If they're broken, replace them with new ones. Do the same for the other side. Take these little rubber side grommets and slide these in position. Right there, and then same with the other side. All right, take the wiper arm and wiper, get that relined up. Take the nut, install the nut. And you can take a 14mm socket, extension, and a ratchet, and we'll tighten this down. Just make sure it's lined up where it was when it came off. Snug that up, and I'll do the same with the other one. And snug that up. That's good. And put the covers on over the nuts. At this point, you want to reconnect the tuning valve. Connect this connector right here. Lock it in place. Now I can take this rag off. I did put a rag down over this throttle body opening in the intake so that I didn't drop anything in there. Take that away. And it'd be a good idea to replace this seal right here. We're not going to because I don't have another seal, but you can just pull up on that little tab right there, get a new throttle body seal. So that looks good. Slide the throttle body in position. Now if it's easier, before I put the bolts in, you can hook these hoses up. So line that one up on the bottom, and this one goes on top. Be a little bit easier to do that before we put the bolts in. And we can take these little clamps off. That's just for coolant to go through the throttle body. Keep it cool. Slide those off. And you could use pliers if you don't have hose clamp pliers. Sometimes it's easier. Oops. Just move those hose clamps down in position. Same with this one. Make sure that bottom hose is all the way on. There we go, that's good. Now I'll take these 4 bolts, get these bolts started. Take a 10mm socket and a ratchet, and we'll tighten these bolts down. Then I'm going to take the same 10mm socket and a torque wrench and torque these to 7 foot-pounds. Take the connector, line the connector up, lock it in place. Take this fuel hose, line that up in that bracket right there. Now take this hose in the back, we're going to connect this hose to this hose. And then take the clamp and line the clamp up. You can do it with your fingers, you shouldn't need pliers. But if you do, use pliers, and then that's going to go right there, just like that. Now you may not have taken that off for replacing the throttle body, but if you did, put that back on. Take the lower portion of the airbox, line this back up. Then there's 3 bolts. Take the 3 bolts. One goes right there, and then the other 2 down here. And we'll just snug those up. Use a 10mm socket and a ratchet. Tighten these down. Install the air filter. Now we're going to take this snorkel, and I have my hose clamp already started on the hose clamp. Hose clamp tool started on the hose clamp, and slide it over the throttle body. Oh, that popped off. Gonna have to reset that. All right, I got it close with the other hose clamp tool. Now I'm just gonna position it a little bit better. That looks pretty good right there. And this hose is gonna go right here. And this solenoid, or this valve, is gonna go right here. Slide that back in position, just like that. And we'll take this hose, slide that right onto the valve cover, just like that. And you should be able to pinch this with your fingers. Move this hose clamp on. Might be a little easier to slide it down before you slide it over the valve cover. Right there. We want to take these 2 ears of the box, and those are going to go in the back right there where the slot is. Just move the snorkel out of your way. Slide that in position. Make sure this cable is out of your way, and lock this in place. That's good. Slide the snorkel back on. Just like that. I'll just plug this in. Plug this into the mass airflow sensor, and then the retainers right there and right there. Now let's tighten up that worm clamp. You can either take a Phillips head screwdriver or a 10mm socket and ratchet and tighten this down. And take the engine cover, line this back up, and push it back down. And take the battery cable, reinstall that. You can use a 10mm socket or a 10mm wrench and a ratchet. Snug that up. Just make sure it's snug, which is good. After this job, you're going to want to make sure you take the coolant cap off and top off the coolant. If a lot of coolant came out, then you're going to have to bleed the system. So use the appropriate coolant. Check your owner's manual. You can use a funnel to do this if you wanted to, or just be careful. So you're going to fill it up, Then you want to let it run, monitoring the coolant system for about 10 minutes. If you put the heat on low, and then watch the temp gauge and shut it off in 10 minutes and recheck the level. Put the cap back on.
Thanks for watching. If you want the parts to do it yourself, check out oneaauto.com, the place for DIY auto repair.